Hey folks, we're back. We're finally here with another critique session. I got Jessica joining me tonight. Thank you very much.
Hello. Finally, we've been
Yeah,
working on this one for a while, trying to
this
get it
was
together.
literally due probably like a month ago,
Mm.
guys, but we had scheduling conflicts. I was on two vacations. There were technical issues where we couldn't get audio out of, some of
We
this. So,
literally sat down to record this already
like 3 weeks
completely.
ago, maybe
Yep.
yeah, about 3 weeks ago we tried this. So I'm sorry that the challenge theme is it was somewhere along the lines of summer of sci-fi vibe, so kind of feels summery, kind of feels sci-fi.
Fun
I had a bunch of
combination.
just screenshots of like generic or not generic but sci-fi stuff with tropical kind of themes and stuff. So we're going to see what kind of hits that here. These are kind of more or less all illustrative, though if people submit something more conceptual, that's cool too. But we're gonna just go. There's only 12 submissions this month, so we're just gonna go through them all, top to bottom, left to right, and then at the end we'll let you know our personal favorites, and we'll put up a new one so you guys can get feedback from Jess, who's a professional working illustrator, and I'm illustrator more so concept artist. So yeah, we cover everybody's bases here. All right, so we got Kingsman up first.
Nice.
I no, definitely the sci-fi. Nothing too summary on my side. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not getting summary. I like the image though. It has an interesting storytelling quality to it. I am getting a little bit of conflict in the focal point. What is the focal point? So we have this kind of hyper perspective of this child zoomed in from the floor, but then also like on the other side of the canvas, we have this bright blue glowing thing. So it's like which one of these is the story about? Which one of these is the focal point? And that is further exaggerated by having that vertical line right down the middle of the canvas. So your eye is literally jumping between the two
Mm-hmm.
sides. So it's like two paintings as opposed to one.
Yep.
So you need a way to link them and to make one of those focal points less important.
Yeah, you're 100% right on this. The attention's divided, which creates a lack of flow and emphasis with something like this.
Hmm.
The lighting looks good. I like the two lighting sources with the cool and the warm
Yeah.
backlight.
Yeah.
Um, but there's some other odd choices in this as well. Like it looks like there's kind of like a character laying on a bed here, but like they didn't
And then
really.
the one against the window.
And there is a character here, but it's like if is this character part of this equation? And if so, like why are they kind of cropped off that we barely see head and like a foot? At this point, just like are they part of this or are they not? If they're not,
Hmm.
just edit it. You got to be your best editor. So like just remove them. And if this character is doing something important, it
I
looks like they're kind of bored just looking out the window, not
I think
interacting with this.
I think what we're getting is like a domestic scene, like a mother and a father maybe with the child looking at them. But it looks like there's a bottle on the ground. It looks kind of gritty, like this is not a happy scene per se, maybe. The storytelling is a little confusing. There's not enough clues, I think, to really let me know what's going on here. But again,
Is
like it seems like those characters are telling a story, but this glowy thing in the middle, I have no idea what it is or how it relates to any of the things that are happening in the scene.
Yeah. it I feel like there's a style disconnect too. Like, proportionately and with this character, it looks so stylized. The proportions are far more realistic on these two
Yeah.
characters.
That feels more like gritty and noir, whereas the
Yeah.
kid seems more of like cartoony, animated. Yeah,
I think too, like if you do a future technique like this, they should have a little bit of paint touch this pretty much looks raw 3D, right? Like it hasn't been
yeah.
altered or edited whatsoever.
Well,
I think you're getting some texture. Like you could still see the clipping on
and
the model with the geometry here. Like that hasn't even been painted over.
the other thing that actually is related to that I was thinking of is the difference in textures. Like you have this window that has this very like gritty, noisy texture, which is really pretty. I think that's my favorite part of the whole
It's very
painting.
well done.
Where then you have this character that is super flat and almost
Nothing.
cell shaded looking. And so that lack of cohesiveness in the surface noise and the surface
Style.
textures
Again,
is
it's a
disconcerting.
style issue.
And it's also exaggerating that split two painting feeling because one side looks one way and the other side looks the other way. So
Mm-hmm. But yeah, thank you for submitting Kingsman.
hope that's helpful.
I hope I did. I hope we said something helpful here. You want to start us off with the Sea of Loves. Now this is hitting all the beats for me. I want to know your thoughts. This
Well,
is
it's
summary
also really well
sci-fi.
done. This one is really well executed. It does feel very cohesive. Yeah, it's really beautiful composition. One of the things with the composition that's throwing me off a little bit is it feels a little cramped on the side that the girl is on. I feel like I just want a little more breathing room. And I think the answer isn't so much to crop the other side or move it over. I think it just you just widen it a little, like just give us a little more room behind her so it doesn't feel so tightly cropped. So she falls a little more on that third line. I think that that'll be a stronger image
Yeah, I agree. Let's just for the hell of it,
just to
let's
see
see
it.
what
Yeah.
Photoshop's AI skills are up to. Right? Edit, fill, content aware. But basically kind of fill that in and then I'd even knock it back with like 15% more atmosphere in some of like these
Yeah,
areas.
so you don't need all that
And
detail.
but yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it with that. I think that's exactly what it needed, and it would make for a really gorgeous wide kind of panel wallpaper too.
Hmm.
Doing something like this. So yeah, I mean, beautiful work, Anastasia. I featured her work in the channel a little
Ah,
bit in the past in the portfolio episode. See, like just a little bit of Atmo with like a contrast reduction. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's seams, but yeah, that's exactly what I would do. I think this image is stunning. She was
yeah,
working
and
on like full design sheets of like these whales, and I
they're
didn't know the
gorgeous. I
context of
love
it.
them. One of the things that just caught my eye is that little guy on top of the whale. I didn't even see him before
Hmm.
that. And that's actually a really cool detail. I feel like he looks a little cartoony though compared to the rest of the painting. I get that he's like kind of like small and not
Yeah, maybe
important.
it's because he's so far away.
I think also because he looks outlined as opposed to
Yeah,
all the vegetation around looks like very brushy. I would just soften him a little bit, just make it a little brushy so it doesn't feel quite
yeah.
so outlined and delineated.
I mean, but this is a gorgeous level of even level. This is an example of even level of finish,
Yeah.
fantastic lighting, consistency with style, and everything kind of flows really nicely. This is fantastic. Thank you,
I think
Anastasia.
real quick, one thing is it happened accidentally, I think, when you were changing the values, but that like bright spot behind her head, I think is actually really nice. And like I would kind of maybe
Put
get
like
it
a
to,
little cloud back there.
yeah, like a little, that little bright haloing her, I think is just enough to help fight some of how
Accident.
busy the picture is and draw the eye right there.
That was totally an accident. But yeah, I agree. Like just plop a little cloud back there. A little bit of icing on that cake will go a long way. What are you drinking tonight? I have a whiskey in our
Oh,
mid piece intermission here.
I got whiskey as well. I've got Noble Oak. This is the
This
first
is
bottle I
Bullet.
bought of this, but I am really enjoying it. It's very tasty.
I that does look fantastic. I'm kind of boring. I just have Bullet.
Hey, work with what works, you know? Like,
Yeah,
no need to be experimental if it's good.
yeah, it's good. It's good. What are you folks drinking? Let us know in the comments.
Hopefully something good.
Drink and draw. All right. Overall, Demiano. I think I hope. Let me know if I got that wrong. I think this is great. For the most part, I think this desk feels a little low. Maybe it's something with the scale. Maybe
Yeah,
these
I think
people
it's
feel a
supposed to
little
be
too
like
big.
dropped into the floor. Like it looks like the floor wraps around it, which
Yeah,
is
there's a
confusing.
design
There's
issue, right?
weird perspective thing there that doesn't make sense.
Like it almost feels like that we should like I would show
And
something.
yeah, like or if the desks are dropped into the floor, then the other one should be too, because it's really confusing that one's normal and one's like in this weird placement. But just putting the legs on it does help.
Yeah, I'd have this like
Hmm.
kind of like up there
Yeah,
ish a little more.
especially because there's a lot of empty space in this picture.
Yeah. That can one thing I usually do is like that can be so like there's wires and there is cut lines on the floor, but like I'd go further with that. Like design out like really intricate, flooring details. Yeah, you could have like a grate like over and like different partitions in the design. Like this could be a texture, this could be a texture. You could show steels and like pipes below. Great. Like there's ways
It's
to
something it
handle
kind
that.
of mirrors that up above as well as visually interesting.
Yeah,
The
like
grate that's
that.
on
This
the
is cool.
ceiling.
That's like a perfect way to handle the ceiling there. Um,
I will say it's very ambitious. I like how much thought they've put into placing a lot of different figures and
yeah,
organizing the visual hierarchy.
and the
Your eye,
textures. There's a lot of cool textures going on.
yeah.
I think maybe what could help this bit of empty space is like again I maybe like just lower maybe I nudge these people over
Yeah, I
just a
feel
bit
like the
more.
placement of that desk and figures is compete, especially I think the bottom of that desk, that straight line, is just really jarring.
It's a lot, especially considered like that desk is like kind of like floating and there's a lot more to it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just
Yeah,
nudge
you
these
could
guys
tighten it
over,
up a little just by pushing it in.
and then I wouldn't I'd make the angle like a little more looking at it. It's kind of facing this way, which I don't know. I think a little more set dressing with this overall I think could help, but I mean conceptually I do like the idea quite a bit. All right,
Yeah.
we
I,
have
I really like just a small detail that I really enjoy about that piece is the large kind of glowing figures on the desk, the
yeah,
kind of like projections. It's a really nice
and
touch.
the
It's
reflections and stuff. Really
Mhm.
well done. So silence, something like that. I can't. I'm not good with names. You guys know that. If I showed up and pronounced everyone's name right, you think I'm like a clone.
That's how we'll know.
Or what are they in Blade Runner? It's like something like a snatcher. My body was body snatched.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not the real brush sauce guy. So this is interesting.
I feel like this one has a lot of potential. It
hmm
just looks unfinished.
it that's what it is, and I don't think I need to go much crazier in depth with this. It just feels like it's something that needs more time. You know, the edges are a little all over the place. Materials could use more attention. A little bit of crispening and sharpening up of various places.
Yeah.
Maybe something a little more interesting out here because that's like
Yeah.
our window into this world, and we're not given too much.
I also find that the shapes in that window are a little distracting versus adding to the image. Like I think that when you look through the window, the picture gets weaker. Like
Yep.
I think that the design of the girl, the little flowers on the fog in the window, the laptop, all that stuff is more interesting and more well designed. Whereas the shapes of the city around her head, it kind of forms this little bubble of light over her head and her head kind of it's like you need something to overlap. You need that light to come down and intersect with her head versus have this dark shape over her head before the light starts.
Yep.
So it feels that overlap will make it feel less flat.
And the weird anomaly in this for me, and I'm gonna end it on that on my side, is just like you have like these things up in the
Yeah.
sky, but nothing is defined enough to like
Like
give
I
me a reason to care, intrigue my interests a lot further. It feels undone to do to come circle back to your starting statement on that.
yeah, I think those are meant to be clouds, but then the picture of her looking at the blue skies makes me think
Yeah.
maybe it's a pollution sort of thing. So a little more clarity in that landscape would help a lot.
Yeah. Thank you for submitting. All right, here we go. Cipher Biscuit. This is a household name in this community here. He is back. He is back with this very, very ambitious picture. All right, so we got a little bit of the process. So it's like drawing. Then we got this. Okay, but we can focus in on this
I
bit.
find myself confused by the storytelling. Like I don't understand.
This is very interesting. Let's get that out of the way, right? Like we've got like warheads. We've got
Skulls, giant
mutant
skulls in the
evil
rocks.
mermaids, and there's like a little dude serving cocktails to this person, and then we have like very sophisticated, like almost like geisha like synthetics. He's got like a robot arm. There's a lot
Yeah.
of intentful details here. That my issue is I can't draw connections between any of it. Like
What any of it means.
what
The
does
story
this have to
kind of
do with this shot here, and what does this guy have to do with the relationship of this character, and how does this person know this, and like why does this
and
person
why is this person sitting on the mermaid? Why is
yeah
the mermaid letting them sit on them?
I think this might be like 10 ideas all rolled up into one image that it just it doesn't really solve some of those more specific ones. I'm
And
having a hard time putting that into words.
I think there's two things to me that are holding it back. So one is color and one is like body language. So the body language is confusing. Like we don't know why somebody would be sitting on somebody else for one, and that the gesture of them looks unnatural. It looks posed, like this person is
You
sitting
don't
there.
you don't see this sort of action or interaction right with two figures often. Usually this is very specific, and there's like some kind of subservient relationship. This person like
And
is total,
yeah, it doesn't look like a natural interaction. So your brain is going, why? Why is this person letting someone sit on them? Why is this person sitting on this other person? Why are they just sitting there in the middle of nowhere on top of each other? So the body language is very confusing. And then also just a note on the anatomy of like a mermaid. The anatomy of a mermaid doesn't make sense. And the legs or the knee is one of the main parts of the anatomy of a mermaid, doesn't make sense. So the pose that you've put her in exaggerates the fact that it's weird for a mermaid to have like a knee joint. It's like exaggerating it that she's like a human with a mermaid skin over legs. So I would say just in like a conceptual design, like creature design, it's the last position you'd want to put a mermaid in because it's like dependent on her having knees, if that makes
those
sense.
need hold your beer,
Which a
folks. We
mermaid
have a
wouldn't have.
resident mermaid expert.
It's just, it's like you want, with anything that's imaginary, you want to suspend skepticism. You want the viewer to not be skeptical of what they're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And this does the opposite. It makes you very skeptical of whether this is realistic or not. And then the other thing that throws me off is the colors. So the environment itself is this very like acidic yellow, green, teal kind of color range. But then that doesn't really show up on the characters. And the characters, we get these really warm
Yeah,
colors that are very blown out and
very
highly
blown
saturated.
out. It doesn't feel natural. Like,
And in that lighting scenario or environment, they wouldn't look that color.
thank you for your insight on this, Jess. Max, thank you for your submission. This is a hell of a piece. I think it's got a lot of ideas going on, but I still think it needs maybe to go back a little to the drawing board in terms of like what we're seeing here. There's a lot to process. I'll be thinking about this piece for like another 3 weeks. I guarantee it. There's like I want like a whole side story spin-off thing of what this dude's deal is like, because I want what's in that drink.
It's true.
It's true.
Yeah,
It's
and I think
orange.
there's
It
a
could
lot
be
of
Mai
cool
Tai.
ideas, but almost too many thrown together in a
It is.
blend.
Here's a very interesting take on from Huey, right? Or Huey? I'm gonna even simple names I'm gonna get wrong. So this took us a little while to understand, as obvious as it is in retrospective. I had a little trouble reaching her, but my wife came in. She dropped her knowledge on us and was
She
like,
knew exactly what she was looking at.
she did. And it's like there's a camera lens here, and right, the person is like, hey, I'm holding up these people, right? Like when people do that with like the pyramids or like the moon.
Yeah,
and,
she's saying
and,
like holding the moon.
right, it's something you see a lot on Instagram with photography. And that's apparently been all recreated, right, with this illustration. Sorry if I just mansplain this, like, what,
Well,
it wasn't
I didn't
obvious
like
to me,
it
though.
at all. And even when your wife said it, I didn't quite see it until now I'm looking at it and I see like there's like the little camera things in the corner, like the little framing camera thing. So I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
So it's like, okay, I'm on board for that. Let's cool, let's go with it. It's a very interesting, you don't see it in illustration like this. I've never had it ever, so maybe it's a cool take on that. From a technical perspective on this, what would you do to improve?
So it's hard for me to say, for one, because this style is one that I'm not very competent with, or I don't see very often. I don't seek it out, so I don't understand
Hey,
some of
let's
the
keep it
stylistic
simple. Let's
choices.
keep it simple in general. Well,
But I am like, I get that the thing is supposed to look how small they are because they're resting on my hand. But I find that tangent to be very distracting in a way. Like it definitely does. Like I keep looking at it and being confused by it, and then trying to put my head like, oh, it's supposed to be like an optical illusion that's drawn. So that throws me off. And I think the other thing that really throws me off is the backdrop, that like kind of like wall of trees that is like perfectly. Like it reads as a fence to me, but then they have treetops. So like
What
that
is
whole
this?
like landscape design, yeah, and that I don't even understand what that's supposed to be. So the environment behind them is very confusing.
Yeah.
And I find it also jarring that it looks like that green part is going like right into her mouth. But again, I don't know if that's meant to be like the weird optical illusion of her like framing the scene in the photo.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's gonna eat them or something.
That's why I asked you, because I know this type of art is not your bag, and it's great. It's
Gross me
great
out.
sometimes to get someone that knows art but is not like totally in tune with. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there's
tough.
different stylistic choices.
For me, I think yeah, maybe you could pull. Again, it's a very interesting concept to pull off. I don't know how long that'll go in a portfolio, even if it's technically executed really well. It's interesting. But yeah, for me, a lot of it's the execution on this. You know, the lighting just doesn't really work whatsoever. Even in this style, it's non-existent. Everything is like flat coloring book rendered. Like it's where is lighting? It does not exist in this. And I think if that was handled, it could probably work a lot better. And then again, avoiding some of those things like, you know, like what is this? Why is this overgrown? Why is she eating this grass patch? I 100% agree with a lot of what you said. Um, but like the other thing is like, I want to know, like, usually you do that, right? Like that whole, like I'm grabbing something in the background, I'm messing with the scale. If it's very iconic, right? When you see people doing that with the moon, the pyramids, the Eiffel Tower is the most recent version of that I've seen. But this is just like a road crew with some very
But it looks like they're fighting something.
yeah, but like
But
there's
she's
nothing
just stopping to be
iconic.
like, huh,
It's
look at these people fighting.
right. They're just like a regular people. So like, why would anybody do this with just like some random people that are like, you know what I mean? Like it again, it comes back, I guess, to like, you know, the why. Like why are we doing this with this group of people? For me, it's yeah, I'm gonna very interesting and thank you, but yeah, I'm not sure I totally connect with all the ideas here. All right, here's a good one, Captain Blue. This is
Ooh.
charming,
Yeah,
right? My wife really loved this one.
I like this one too. There is something very sweet and nostalgic about it. It has a really nice feeling to it.
But that said, and I think we
Hmm.
agree, my biggest beef with this is the value structure.
Yeah, contrast.
It lacks it. If you could like hit this with a 1-2 punch, first knock the contrast into submission, and then get into the materials to start to really break down the color
Yeah.
temperatures on this, you have like again, I wouldn't, maybe values is considered a compositional thing, but like you don't really have to rework as much as others have to do as far as I'm concerned to
Yeah, I
make
feel
this
like the
work.
picture is solid.
Yeah, and the idea is solid, right? Very Wally-esque, but it's very flat and has like this whole midsection just reads as one thing because there's no right, there's no separation between this and this. That's three
Yeah.
different things. You got buildings in the background, you got main character in the foreground, you have a sky, and they're all exactly the same. And that is why it's, for me, maybe someone else is totally into that, but for me it's highly problematic. And
Well, and it's like you can keep the contrast soft. It doesn't have to
yeah,
become like super blown
it
out.
doesn't have to
But
do that.
yeah, like it doesn't have to have like lens flare and like bright glowing lights, but it has to have enough to separate the foreground from the background and to frame the character so you can read them at a distance.
Yeah, definitely. And then, you know, if this is metal, you gotta sort out like how can you make that look metal
Hmm.
versus dirt, versus sky. Like a lot of this, like it seems like you're really clear with the lighting on the buildings, right? Light shadow. But
Hmm.
like on the robot, it's like you didn't give a damn, and that's the focal point. Like metal taking direct sunlight, that's gonna make a statement. You got to get into that. You got to study your metals. You got to look at your materials. Does he have glowing eyes? Does he have non-glowing eyes? I'm gonna color dodge your whole painting at this point. Why not? Like, let's just do it. But
And
that's what it takes.
Yeah, and it's, one of the things I was going to point out is how rough a lot of the edges are and the surface textures are. And I think if you take the time to go in and really paint those different surfaces, in the process, you'll clean up a lot of those edges. And I think this will be a very beautiful piece. Like there's a lot of story, there's a lot of heart and mood to it. Yeah, it's simple, but it's a very like iconic sort of design that you connect with. It has a lot of potential. It just
Hmm.
needs some time for it to be polished.
It's very muddy. Like you could even do pretty gray skies and mix these with some purples. If you want it more, you could bring some yellow. But see, like it's very monochromatic. You can make monochromatic look good by the subtlety and the variety of these color beats
Hmm.
or color notes, as Marco Bucci calls them. But it's the long term or meta game in a painting like this is making gray and dull colors look interesting, and the
Look
key to
beautiful.
doing that is subtlety and color temperature shifts, which this among the edge control issue that you mentioned, it'll propel this piece tiers above where it's landing right now. It needs, well, I'd say another 10 hours of work. Maybe just you could argue it take another 30, but put as much time as it needs to like jack it up.
It's true.
It's cool. It's cool. All right.
Yeah,
And
and I hope you do. Like, I think that piece has a lot of
I love
potential to
it's
be
got
really
heart.
cool.
It's got heart.
It's true.
All right. Do you got your shades on? Because we're going into solar flare territory. This is bright. This is intense. I don't think there's a single neutral in this painting. It's
Yeah,
Look at this. See what I mean by that, folks.
is the
Th- th-
saturation.
this is a neutral color. Anything on this side of this whole square, saturated, regardless of color or regardless of hue, is really on this side, right? So if you color pick anything in this, it's gonna be on this side. This is like the most neutral color around, despite this is a white color anyway, so that I'm not counting this particular spacesuit there,
Yeah,
but
you got like
most
the bright yellow, bright orange, bright green,
bright
bright blue.
blue,
Yeah,
bright yellows, like
a lot.
bam, 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 bam. I'm getting hit in the face left and right with saturation overload. Needs balance.
It's almost like the saturation is out competing the values even. Like you can't even tell what's light and dark because the values are so strong, or the saturation is so strong.
Yeah, it needs subtlety for the most part. There's ways to do these. Why don't you go on for a sec? I'm gonna look for an example.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that threw me off about this piece initially was perspective. So at first, I didn't understand how large this orb was of water that they were going towards. And it was confusing because I'm like, why are they going towards this bobble of water that's about the same, like not that much bigger than them? It wasn't until like I saw that long road in the distance that I realized that it was so far away. So you're getting some like flattening out where that possibly because of the saturation that it feels like that orb of water is much closer to them, like it's just inside that crevice or cliff face that they're standing next to. So you need to push it back. You need to like separate the space better, so it reads to scale.
Yeah,
You can
there's a
understand what's
massive
happening.
atmospheric perspective issue, and then
Yeah.
the sense of depth is getting largely affected by that. I agree.
Yeah, because if you look at how red this environment is, everything that's in this environment will be affected by that atmosphere. If you think of the air has color to it, it's not crystal clear, especially this environment where it's sandy, it's hot, it's stormy. That red is like super pervasive. It's everything inside that scene is going to be affected by that air that's between the viewer and whatever they're looking at. So the more air there is between us, the more the colors are going to shift and be affected by that filter essentially between us and the object.
I didn't find what I was looking for, but I did find some pretty good examples of like universally very warm images that I think would be pretty fitting to this. And you could see like the readability and the balance of some of Martin's images here. Like there's good contrast. This is actually a neutral, is
Mhm.
filled with color, as something like that is, or in
And
a
then
case
that's
like
the
this,
opposite.
right? You do the this is reverse atmospheric perspective, where you get really saturated on the horizon, but then there's more grays and neutrals as things come forward, and then it gives you the opportunity to shift from a warm neutral to a cool one, without really making things look jarring. And that's what like a lot of these warm palettes do really, really well, with that sense of atmosphere is the subtlety, the use of grays, like everything fits together without, kind of overstaying its welcome.
And like that yellow one we were looking at where the sky was glowing yellow, it still feels very yellow. Like it
Hmm.
feels like the yellow is pervasive, but it doesn't all have to be at max saturation to feel that way.
Yep. This is all grays. That's why this
Mhm.
works so good, because this is the only saturated color in this piece is that sky. Everything else here is neutrals, and
And it makes it
they're
very beautiful.
the grays the grays balance it out. And he knows that too in a piece like this. Like the sky is gray, this is the opposite of what we just looked at. So the sky is gray and neutral, and then they're putting the pops of color on some of these focal bits. So it's same with something like that too. This one, the complete opposite. All gray sky, pop of color on the focal point. This is pretty good too. See, reverse. Saturated sky, gray foreground, midground.
And it feels very red. It feels like you're
Mm-hmm.
on a red planet. The sky
Yep.
is red. Yeah.
That's what it needs. I mean, they got a big tangent at the top of this globe, touching the top of the border here. I'm a compositional snob. That pisses me off. But, you give it a room to breathe and you're good. Um,
And also just scooching it back, like away from the characters, because it feels so like right up in your face, like you think that it's close.
this idea here is genuinely really good. I
Mhm.
love this. It's just how it's executed. That need it just needs more on that. It needs a little more planning. Structurally, of course, and I think edge control. A lot of the in between stuff is very messy, so it's going to need more time anyway, just to clean it up and render it. Do what Jess does: zoom in to this portion of the painting and spend 2 days on it. It'll look great, guarantee it. Right? That's what you do. You fix it. You zoom
Yeah.
in on a
Yeah, because
painting and you spend 8 hours in a corner like that. But that's why
and
you're.
I know that it's, when I'm selling a print 3 years from now, it's still going to look good. I'm not going to be looking at it and be like, man, I wish I would have spent the time making this look nice.
Yep.
If someone's going to hang it on their wall and then they're going to walk past it and be like, oh, that looks like crap right there. Like,
Let's go to this one. Here we go. Maxwell. I don't know what. I don't know what. I don't
I
know
think
what.
that the main
Was this
thing,
for another challenge? Did you submit? I know I'm not getting sci-fi. I'm not getting summer, but I'm getting a color sketch that could have been something.
I mean, it's got a glowing yellow hat. That could be sci-fi, a sci-fi bird.
I want to love this because I love sci-fi birds and shit. Like Final Fantasy does them,
Strange thing.
Fantasy Star does them. They got the rappies. I love that sci-fi bird thing, but this definitely just it needs a little bit more. It feels too rough, too unfinished, unresolved. Like what are
Yeah,
these things?
this feels like a thumbnail or a sketch. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like you've taken the time to actually paint it. There's like some green marks where there's could be some vegetation, some black marks where there's some like things hanging down. Like I'm not even sure the surface it's walking on. Is it
Is it
like
glass? Is
blue
it water?
glass? Is it water?
Is
Is it
it
yeah?
marble? Is it? It could be too many things. If this is like you at your peak, like 95 to 100%, and you're just like so. I'm not. I don't mean to take the wind beneath your sails. Even though I might be doing that, like okay, but now like when you think you're done, and Feng Zhu says this all the time too. Like students have to spend like 70% more time than they think they do to get that to a representational or presentable level. Like don't compare yourself to what professionals are doing today. Like if I can bang out an image in 6 hours or whatever, like don't compare yourself to me doing that on that. I've been doing this for 15 years. Spend 40 hours like rendering that floor if you have to, because you need that mileage. You got to get that specific with it.
Yeah, and that speed comes from knowing like different surface qualities and edge control. Like you know how to make a surface look like a certain type of texture, reflect light a certain way to be that material. And that comes with practice and time. So if you don't spend the time learning to paint those materials properly, you won't reach that point where you can paint it quickly.
I was looking for an example on stuff, but apparently I don't know where I still stored these references that I could have made a quick point about. Oh, like this, for example. I played Halo Infinite last year. It was cool. But like I take screenshots like this, in the game that it doesn't let me look at. Sorry. Because there's really good attention to the surfaces and the materials here.
Yeah.
Even like a screenshot on a game like this, see, it gives me like fungible information. Like I know this is metal. I know this is hard surface, or I know this is dirt, or I know something might be glass or reflective. Do like whatever you have to do. Use that as a resource to up the quality of your image. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Halo gets the
And
surfaces.
just even surface studies, texture studies,
Material studies, the material spheres.
Yep.
That's where you're at. Do them every day. Do a different material sphere. Even if you spend 20 minutes on it every day, that's 20 minutes well spent for you.
Mm-hmm.
Calio.
This is a cool piece.
Like conceptually, this is one of my
Yeah.
favorites. Like I
Yeah.
love fucking weird floating giant sci-fi shit in the sky that's kind of scary, and I love
Spooky
sci-fi
chicks.
chicks like
I'm all
this.
for the spooky chicks.
I like this is sci-fi novel cover,
Yeah, it
like
looks like a
sci-fi
book
novel
cover.
cover material. Like it could
Mhm.
totally work. It just
It
needs to
does,
look finished.
yeah, it doesn't look finished. That's exactly what I'd say.
More finished than some of the previous entries we've looked at. Maybe like the last three. Like you've got the edges pretty much down. You got the ideas blocked out, but there's
Yeah, the
still
shapes and stuff are good.
the water. Right, I'm gonna assume this is water. It's super unfinished. That's very first pass looking. The material of that nylon suit, it needs like decals. It needs surface treatment.
The
Um,
eye behind her, those big chunky bits, they look like they're just one big hard brush
yep.
in Photoshop. They don't look like there's any design or detail to them, any form to them. They just, here's the big shape where it's going to go when I paint it.
So that's the theme that I take away from this great idea. This is getting there. If this was my image, I'd put this at 40 to 50% complete. It's like
Hmm.
all blocked in. For me, this is the hard work. The hard work's done. The design is done. Composition's done. Lighting's done.
The color choice even is pretty
The
solid.
colors are awesome. The color and lighting on this is amazing. But now you got to get in there and sell me on the materials and the world and like what is going on in the background. Even like for me, even if I sketch something like this out, I might go to 3D, render out all this tech shit in the background, then like paste it into the painting, then paint over it. Like
Yeah.
that's what the process is. You got to no pulling any kind of stops. You got to just do whatever it takes to get this up, like 120%. Because if you don't, your competition will.
And I mean, I just think this piece is solid. Like, you should finish it. You should make it, finished and put it in your portfolio
I
because
love
this
it.
is like, you could see this on a book cover, no
I
problem.
love this piece. This is like the closest thing, maybe aside from Anastasia's, from like the stock imagery that I just kind of grabbed on the challenge cover there. Like, but this encapsulates what I was going for. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And because you got so much right, that's why I'm so hard on like now go all the way with it.
Finish it. Yeah. It's a good piece.
Make it the HD version of your idea. Like if we're gonna convert things to video game graphics, you just nailed the N64. Make that look, like a PS4 or PS5 version of this idea, and then you're in business. All right, we got Olivia Kate. I like that. Two names I think I didn't butcher. Might be a first.
Pronounceable.
Thank you for submitting, Olivia. This is very cool. You got a city in the backdrop. You've got some kind of ecosystem, like right, like artificial
Hmm.
ecosystem going with
Yeah,
synthetic
like a little
life.
greenhouse of some
Some kind
kind.
of greenhouse. You got these characters. You got a lot going on here, and I think that's
And
exactly what we were looking for.
I actually like the stylized quality of this. Like it feels like it has a very consistent style choice. It doesn't feel like you were going for realism. It
This is
feels
very
like,
consistent.
yeah, I like the consistency of the style. With that said, I feel like there's a bit of sameness. Like everything kind of blurs
You got to
together.
learn materials. It all looks the same because everything's painted. Like the leaves are the same as the concrete or metal, which is the same as the sky, which is
Or even color.
material.
Like the color
Well,
choices
there's
in
no lighting.
contrast
That's what I
is,
was gonna get to. There's no lighting in this at all.
yeah. And the green feels the same as the yellow and feels the same as the brown. All of those colors are so close together that they're not reading as separate things. And yeah, it's making it really hard to distinguish what's what until you're up close in it.
Temperature shifts is a
Yep.
huge part of that. You got outside lighting, which is gonna get overblown like you did. I think you did that well. But I mean that means everything on the inside, except for whether it's gonna be light, is gonna get compressed down. Um, a lot of this, you got to go to Shot Deck, you got to go to Pinterest, you got to look up interior lighting situations, you got to look up movie stills. Again, whatever it takes. There's no lighting going on inside. You could probably get away with what's going on the outside if you don't touch it at all. But again, there's no sense of light going on whatsoever. And that light is going to, like my first comment, is going to affect the materials. So you
Yeah.
start addressing these things, and I think like this is really cool. You can get something brewing here.
And if I have time, there's one more thing that I was noticing about this piece is the focal point is a really
Hmm.
weak focal point.
Is it
I
this?
like I think that it's actually the guy walking down between those two blue pillars. See, again, it's a question, which it shouldn't be a question mark. But the two blue pillars are distinct in the rest of the image. So my eye says we're supposed to go over here, which would make that figure between them the most important. So I would find a way to use the lighting and the color and the shape and everything like that to draw our eye to him, make that the most important part of the image. The rest is still important, obviously, but the eye wants to have like a heart, like the heart of the painting, that everything else is the veins that are connecting to the heart. You want to have something that you can latch onto, and right now everything feels kind of samey importance, except for the door with the two columns around it, but that's not a focal point. So
Yep. Compositional stuff. But yeah, you've hit the theme anyway really, really well,
yeah,
Olivia Kate. So thank you for submitting. That leaves us
it's
to
a
our
cool theme.
last entry here, which is this is a familiar name. Even though it feels like we haven't done this in ages, because I did the last one without you because we had technical issues, and
Hey, we got it this
we
time.
got
Okay.
this. We got this. We got this. Shit, we got a drink. We Monday night here, folks. We're doing good. This is cool. Like splash art. We're getting into splash art territory. Look at
But
this
it's
nice little highlight here on this material here.
yeah.
That's like 200% further than like the last five have taken into consideration.
And I think that like the character itself, like there's a lot of pieces in it that are really well executed that are very pleasant to the eye
Yeah,
and
I
taking
think for
that
me
little hat.
a lot that what leaves desired here is the background and even pushing the lighting choices here even
Hmm.
further. Like upping the intensity of like this is a lighting source on here, cooling off some of that background because a lot of it just, it feels quasi unresolved.
Yeah, way less designed than the character, which it's not as important, but you don't want it to feel
Yeah.
like a stand-in.
There's just a disconnect.
And I think another thing that's throwing me off about this piece is I'm getting kind of this checkerboard effect of light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. There's not a lot of like consistent, like here's a big form against a different big form.
Yeah,
It
like
looks like
this.
it should be light on a dark background. So I would find ways to kind of frame her with the dark and enclose, like make her shape more of a singular light shape against the
I
background.
yeah. I'd even like is it me? Well, it seems like the legs are supposed to be like an emission. Like they need to be it feels like there's something that should be glowing.
Yeah, I feel
Y-
like it's some sort of, yeah, material there. I'm not sure what type of material it
I,
would
I
be.
can't even fix this with levels, so let's go to my good friend, Mr. Color Dodge. I think this is gonna, I think that's what it's trying to do, but it's being too shy about it. Just grab Color Dodge. It works for Ross, right? Ross Draws. Is that his channel? Just Color Dodge. A glowing effect or a metal, it'll fix it. Just like that.
And since you have all those light sources right up in the foreground, those darks on the figure, I don't know that I'd have them like so many like light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, because they would still be affected by the
Mm-hmm.
light sources. I would push the background back with the darkness and pull her forward with the
I'd
light.
add, for me, because I added that in there, I'd add something. If you do what I did with the legs, I think that needs
Yeah.
to be balanced, of course. So, whether you're adding graphics on the face like I did, or making this glow, or making a little bit on the hand, like there's a lot of good ways to do this.
Yeah.
But like your template and your idea is here. It's gonna take a little bit of trial and error to really get this to that next tier.
And the drawing is good. Like
Yeah,
the
I like the
draftsmanship is
anatomy. I
good.
like the
That's
gesture.
fun. Yeah. It's just the values. You want to consolidate them.
Values, pushing that lighting even further, and then yeah, like this is pretty close. This is doing a lot of things
And
right. So let's bring this back, and look back at this. You got a favorite among all these? Which we usually kind of pause for a minute to sort this out, but we're going
I think
full
I
live.
agree with you. The space whale or the sky
Yeah,
whales, like that one is just so well done. If I could have two runners up though, it would be the unfinished book cover one with the eye,
yeah, I love it.
or the kind of dusty, sad Wally robot one.
Yeah, that's a good
I feel like
choice. Thank
those two are good runners up if they were finished.
thank you for helping me out with those runner ups. I wholeheartedly agree. I could probably go back personally. I could go back and forth between this and
And
Aricado's here.
yeah,
Like
that's
they're
a
pretty
solid
much on
choice
the
too.
same tier for me. But like without a doubt, these are the images that resonate. I think with the challenge theme and with me quite a bit. So yeah, I think these are fantastic, and I want to thank everybody for submitting, and of course your patience and like this whole 4 week delay
Thank
on
you so
getting these
much for
out.
your
Life
patience.
happens, guys. I'm sorry.
We'll
It's
do better
summer.
next
I'm
time.
never at my desk here in the summer. I'm gardening. We got house construction. I'm going traveling. Yeah,
I
it's
got
tough.
I got a Dragon Con in three
You got
weeks, so
Dragon Con,
but
girl.
that'll be good. I'll be back in time for the next challenge to be done. So
Yeah, something else will come up, and I'll be.
it's true.
Which, yeah, I'll put the next challenge info right after this. But yeah, this has been great. Thank you for weighing in on me with these.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. All right,
Did
where's
we
my
do it?
recorder?
It's recorded, right? I'm seeing a blank screen. Tell me it's recorded.
I see it. All right, folks. So the next challenge is going to be of a creature theme. We're going to make this due September 15th. And the keyword's exotic. So, of course, you're going to need a creature, and everything about it should just feel exotic. Yeah, exotic may mean menacing, it may mean dangerous, it may mean cute, but, I would look and determine for you what really does feel exotic and try to work that into the design of your creature, whether you're putting it in a nice little illustration like these two here, or you're just doing a design sheet. That would be great. All right, so again, all info is in the Discord, which is linked below. Thank you.